Welcome back to the channel. My name's Tefty. Today we're looking at the MPC Live 2 and the MPC One and a quick comparison, thoughts, impressions type of thing. I've had the MPC One for over a year now. I bought it actually pretty much when it came out, which is about a year ago. And then the MPC Live 2 came out as well, and I did not purchase it until recently. I got it last week. You might be thinking, why'd you get the MPC Live 2 when you have the MPC One? And you're not wrong if you're thinking they're basically, they fill the same role, because they absolutely do have similarities, but there's some key differences and some reasons why I ended up getting the MPC Live 2 as well. If you're wondering, am I going to get rid of the MPC One? No, I'm definitely going to keep the MPC One. It is still a fantastic tool, and I would like to have it as a dedicated studio piece that I grab from time to time. The MPC Live 2 has some features that are very attractive for some mobile production type of thing. And I think that's the distinction between the two. Is I feel like the MPC One, even though it's smaller, I feel like the MPC One is better for like a dedicated setup because it excels really well as a controller. There is more buttons just straight up on the MPC One than the MPC Live 2. So you're actually doing more menu diving in the screen on the MPC Live 2 than you are on the MPC One if you learn the shortcuts. There is just a crap load of shortcuts on the MPC One. So it's very conducive as a controller. More things are reachable on these buttons. You still have to menu dive, obviously, but there's quite a bit that's reachable. In fact, one button that I'm always using that I wish was on here is Program Edit. MPC One has Program Edit right here, so you can just immediately go like that and jump into the program. On here, from what I can tell, you have to go Menu and then Program Edit every time. Not that that's a big deal. Obviously, it's just clicking Menu or touch a menu and then pressing Program Edit, but it's something to consider in terms of workflow and usage and all that. Now, if you plan on using the MPC software as your main DAW, like if that's your go-to tool for music production, I really feel like the MPC One fits the best bill, or the best bang for buck. It's the best option in terms of a companion for a computer, because there is more buttons, and I actually think it's better that the footprint is smaller, so it can just sit on your desk along with, say, a laptop and maybe a keyboard and all that, and not take up too much of a footprint. It can also be an audio interface too, so you plug it in, you got an audio interface along with a DAW surface controller type of thing. So I think that is really great, and it's also $700. The MPC Live 2 is almost double at $1,200, so it's a significant price hike for something that does very similar things. And I think that's the consideration, is why would you spend the extra money on an MPC Live 2 when you have basically the majority of the same functionality as the MPC One? And there's a few key differences, and let's go over those. I should also point out that this is like preference type of stuff. I'm not going to go through an exhaustive list of exactly what's different down to the fine bits and points and all that. This is the selling points for me, which I think is more useful from a consumer point of view. Like if you're thinking about which one you should buy, then hopefully this perspective is going to actually help you in that decision. So when I first read the specs on the MPC Live 2, and I read that they put a speaker into it, or a set of speakers, I was like, what? First off, why? And second off, that's just like extra space or money or resources being put into a box that I don't think I would actually use that feature. Fast forward now, a year later, and having purchased it, I think the speakers are fantastic. If you don't know, there's a battery in this, so I can actually just unplug it like so, and it's still going. So there's literally a battery in here. It lasts a decent amount of time, so it's a decent battery, but it's battery operated. So it's very mobile. Let me plug this back in. So speakers, battery operated, those two things right there said to me that this could be a perfect mobile setup, aside from a few issues, and we'll get to those. So one of the reasons for purchasing the MPC Live 2 was the mobility of it. I really did want something that was a bit more standalone, and I could grab, I could just unplug this, pick it up and put it on the couch, or put it on my lap on the couch and start making beats with it. One thing I really like about the OP1 or the OPZ is how mobile it is, and how I can just literally grab the device by itself and be good to go. It has a speaker and all that. And that ended up being a lot more of a selling point than I realized when I first read about the MPC Live 2. Again, when I heard about it, I was like, speakers? Why would you put speakers in this? Doesn't make any sense. And then I thought about it as what if I had the MPC One and I literally could just pick up the MPC One by itself with nothing plugged in, put it on my lap and start making music with it. No headphones or anything. And then it started clicking with me. I was like, that is actually a pretty nice feature. What if we go camping and I want to bring this, out in the wilderness or something. Not that I'm gonna do that, because I don't want dust and stuff to get onto it, but let's say that's an option to throw it in the backpack and do that. An issue with that, just right off the bat, is the weight, because this is heavier than the MPC One. The MPC One isn't light, but it's not like super heavy or anything like that. This can easily fit in a backpack. This is a bit more of a chunky device. It's got some chunk to it, because there's a battery, obviously, and there's speakers as well. It's not a super portable device in that sense, but it's basically the best of both worlds right there that's possible without breaking the laws of physics and stuff. With that considered, you know, speakers, battery, and what you get into it with like the whole interface and all that, I think it strikes a good balance. It technically can fit in a backpack. It's a bit big for that, so your backpack's got to be wide and all that. Probably better just have a straight up carrying case for it specifically by itself, and that would be pretty good. And obviously, if you bring it on a plane or something, you'd want headphones, or just if you go into like a hotel room or something, just if you're traveling, essentially, you're gonna have a few other devices with it. But being able to just pick up the MPC Live 2, like I said, bring it to a couch and start making beats with it. A lot of the times with portable devices, you know, I'll be on headphones and I'll make a beat and I'll be like, man, this would be really cool if Memes heard it and see if she like comes up with a melody or something. Well, with this, I can literally just pop the switch on the back and then I've got access to the speakers. There's no hurdle to jump of having to hook up another pair of headphones or something like that. Be like, yo, listen to this beat real quick. Also, if I want to play some guitar with it or something, like if I want to hear the beat playing and also grab an acoustic instrument or another instrument and then like sing with it or something like that, it kind of opens that up without having to be in a studio environment with monitors set up to listen for. And these are the pros. These are literally the pros that I see as the MPC Live 2 versus the MPC One. The MPC One, I think, is a fantastic studio installation instrument. It's like you can use this, hook it up with a laptop, and basically be good to go in a studio environment. You know, it can hook into a bunch of different gear, like the USB stuff and Eurorack plugs and all that, like the CV gates. It really works for being able to put it into a studio environment and make it a hub or a controller for your stuff. And the Live 2 does that as well, but there's less buttons on the Live 2, and it takes up a bit more space, and it has a battery and speakers. Additionally, one of my gripes with the MPC One is it only has a left and right output, or a main mix output, and you can't hook up a USB connection or anything like that, at least as of now, that I know of, to expand the outputs. The only way is to literally hook it up to a computer and then use the computer's audio interface that you have hooked up that's not the MPC One to have additional outputs. The Live 2, on the other hand, is kind of like the in-between point between the MPC X and the MPC One, price-wise as well. You have a main mix out, and you have a 3.4 and a 5.6 outputs. So 3 stereo outs, or you can have a stereo out and 4 mono outs on this, in addition to the CV gates outs. So a lot of times I like to have a beats left-right, or a percussion stereo mix. And then I like to separate tonal instruments, like keyboards, synthesizer pads, and stuff like that into another stereo mix for mixing breakdowns. And then another one for vocal type of stuff. Like if Memes does any kind of harmony vocals or, you know, just things like maybe effects or harmony vocal type of things that would go into that category. I like those all to be separated. Additionally, I could send one channel out as a bass, but I usually like to have a separate bass instrument if I'm going to do multiple outputs. So this is considering this as a studio setup, because again, you're not going to like hook up 3 stereo outputs out in a hotel room. You're not going to do that, obviously. When it's in your studio, you're going to hook it up and utilize all the possibilities right there, like hooking up synthesizers via the USB and all that stuff. So the 3 stereo outputs is actually very useful to me because I use multiple outputs all the time, and we track like 8 to 16 tracks at any given time when we do live sessions, because we'll have like bass, keys, you know, the Summit hooked up. I have like maybe the Peak as well, doing some other stuff, and then if we record some samples, or if I like if I do some crazy sample manipulation, just reversing, breaking stuff down, decimating and all that, I like that stuff to be separated and not have to share the same drum track. And a lot of the times I would actually prefer to not have the drums come out of the MPC One and just have samples come out of the MPC One and have a separate drum machine by me, which like the Electron Rhythm 2 or something like that. Fantastic, obviously, those devices, but it is another device. And having the ability to say main mix drums, 3/4 tonal pad, you know, maybe a lead sound, something like that, and then additional 5/6 to mess with, that is fantastic. That just gives a lot of breathing room. Have I done that yet in a mix or production? No, this is still relatively new. We're still finishing up some other productions before we get more into some stuff with it. But I have actually brought it to the couch and just made a beat without any headphones or anything, and it's awesome. And I'm surprised. Back to the speakers. I kind of glossed over the quality of the speakers. Like, you turn them on, obviously you're not going to mix a record on them. If you have a high-end pair of headphones or really awesome studio monitors, Atom studio studio monitors that are hooked up and your room is treated correctly, clearly that's a better mixing environment. I'm not trying to tell you that these monitors are going to be able to replace that. That's clearly not the idea. I don't think they're designed with that in mind. I think they're designed as a, you're in the middle of writing and producing, so you need to hear the sound in a good enough way that's going to give you the vibe. I think they hit that mark really well. And to that point of the vibe, you can actually hear low sine waves surprisingly well. I was like, wow, yeah, you can actually hear it go down there, so you can get a sense of what the low frequencies are going to feel with the kick in underneath there. So well done, Akai. I seriously was super skeptical and thought it was weird to put speakers in this. You proved me wrong. It's actually a fantastic setup. Like, really great kind of combo of stuff between the battery, speakers, and the additional features. Yeah, it's got 2 USB connections, which you can always just hook up a USB hub if you want for more connections. That's what I do with the MPC One. So that was like cool, you know, it's a nice feature. It does have Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is good as well. I don't really connect it to other things via Wi-Fi that often. I mean, I could in the future. Like, I don't really use Splice. I know a lot of people like to use Splice, and with Wi-Fi you can log in directly and use that. I personally haven't done that with MPC Live 2 yet, so that could be a big selling point for someone. If you do that on the MPC One, you have to Ethernet jack it. So you have to grab another cable, plug it in via Ethernet jack on the back, and then you're basically good to go. And you also have Ethernet jack on here as well, so there's that. But the multiple outputs, speaker, battery, all that stuff led to I've been thinking about it for a while, you know, like, it was like, is this gear acquisition syndrome, or am I really thinking that this would be a useful device? And once I started thinking about being able to just grab it, like bring it downstairs to the kitchen, make a beat, bring it for a weekend or somewhere else and make beats with it, like, it started making a lot of sense. The one thing that I really wish that they would have considered putting in here is a preamp. Just a basic preamp for the inputs that you could switch on, because as it is right now, if you do want to hook up a microphone, you still have to have some sort of preamplification with it to bring it up to line level. So that's another device. I mean, you could just bring like a Zoom recorder or something and then like plug a mic in and then have the output go directly into the inputs on here and sample that way. That's a workaround right there, but it would have been phenomenal if you could just bring an XLR cable with like an SM58, plug it into the back, and you're good to go, in addition to like sampling like whatever else off your phone or something like that. That would have been badass. So unfortunately, that's not the case with the MPC Live or Live 2. That's probably something they'll put in the future, but you know. Before I wrap up with this video, I should mention quality of the instruments, build quality and all that, and some key differences right there, because they are important. They're not like the main breaking points or anything, but you should consider it if it is something that you're going to be a stickler about in terms of buying these. The pads are different. They both feel great. The MPC Live 2 pads are bigger because it does have a bigger footprint, and I will say I think they feel better. They're pretty much these, but these are smaller. These definitely feel great. They're nice and big and just tactile, sturdy. Like, I don't know, something about them just feel committed. These feel compact. They feel more mobile, even though this isn't like a super small. This is not the Digitact or anything like that, but they still feel like condensed in here. And again, they feel good. I'm not saying they don't feel good, but their size is definitely smaller in comparison, like as you can see on the screen. So consideration right there. Also, the buttons are very plasticky / clicky on here. That you might actually like that better. that might be something to be like, I actually prefer plasticky, clicky type of stuff. And there's also a lot more buttons on here. There's like 30 something buttons on here that give you access to the majority of the features. One thing that always kind of bugs me is the shift buttons right here on the MPC One. So I have to go over here, hold shift. It would have been nice if they put it like right here, because there's so many things that you're shifting, holding, or shift pressing and all that. Like the looper, I use the looper quite a bit, and so like I'm always going to that. So over to the Live 2, these buttons are nice and rubberized. The build quality overall on the MPC Live 2 feels like a step up. Not to say the MPC One feels bad, so I don't want to give that impression. This doesn't feel bad or like a toy, but there's definitely more of a plastic feel to the MPC One. The MPC Live 2 has a bit more refined feel and touch, and all the buttons have this really nice rubberized touch and feel to them. They're also bigger, I think. Well, maybe not bigger, but obviously they're different. Like you have printed, screen printed, onto the plastic or onto the casing. I don't know if this is plastic or not. Onto the casing of the MPC One, you got the printing and all that, along with these plastic buttons. This, you have rubberized buttons with the backlit LED that shines what it is that's coming through. Some considerations right there to think about. These buttons feel the same. I'm pretty sure they're identical. In fact, this feels a little looser in comparison to this one, which that's just manufacturing. This also, this big button, like they feel the same. This has a different click to it, but overall pretty much the same. I did notice also on the MPC Live 2, I felt like the touchscreen was a little better. That might just be placebo, or maybe my MPC One touchscreen is just like slightly faulty, and that's why I complain about it sometimes. But I do find myself able to use the touchscreen a little more effectively on the Live 2, which is good because like the Live 2, you're going to be using it quite a bit. Oh yeah, another thing I should mention as well is workflow. I mean, obviously they're the same workflow because of MPC, but with the MPC One, you're using the pads right here and then going up for the screen and doing buttons over here and all that. That, like this workflow like this, how it's set up, I actually don't think is as conducive to this, to where you have the pads over here and you're adjusting and the screen's in the middle. I actually think that the Live 2 ergonomically setup is better than the MPC One. And when I say better, I don't mean, man, this is such an obvious buy, this is better. I just mean it's like there's one point in ergonomics where technically I think the layout in the Live 2 is better than the MPC One's layout. And this is something that I had no reference of before when I first got the MPC One. So I had no idea that this is how the layout would feel. And I do think this feels better, even though there's less buttons and I have to like menu dive more often to go to stuff. Again, that's not a huge difference. This is not something that would make or break, like, well, you should clearly buy this instead of that. It's just something to consider. So I think that's all I wanted to cover in this video. It's basically just a comparison, impressions, update type of thing. Again, I've used the MPC One for the better part of the year and made a lot of videos on it. If you're familiar with the channel, I'm sure you've seen an MPC One video or two. I will be making some videos, more videos on the MPC Live and my impressions, more experience about it. I'm gonna probably do some modular stuff with it as well. Overall, I like both of them. I think the MPC One is a great platform, and I think the Live 2 is a fantastic mobile platform. You would think that the MPC One would be more mobile, but with the battery, speakers, and all that, I feel like this is so close to being the ultimate perfect mobile setup with the whole, like the screen and everything, and the MPC software, the DAW experience of the platform. Like, it's great. Really, really cool. That's it for the video. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you stuck around all the way to the end, thank you very much. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, ring the notification bell, hit the like button. It lets people know that you enjoyed the video and that the algorithm can say, hey, let's show it to other people and all that stuff. Leave a comment as well. Let me know if you're getting the MPC One or the MPC Live 2, or if you've already picked up one or the other, all that stuff. I actually got some comments on Instagram as well. Like, I know some people got the Live and then realized that they preferred the One over it because of like the button layouts and all that. So it's always interesting to see people's experiences in that. Yeah, thank you so much for all the support. We really appreciate it, and see you next time for another video. Deuces.